Hello and welcome to another one of my case studies. Now this one is of a male kestrel and it came in with a damage to the carpus or the wrist. Now any of you that know about kestrels will know that one of their unique features is that they can hover without any headwind, so they need to be able to control the wings and in particular fine tune the balance of the wings so that they can remain stationary above the ground whilst hunting. And so it's imperative with this case study that we can try and get the injury to the wing to effectively rehabilitate and get it back to normal function, so that it can be released back out into the wild. So the first clip, what I'm going to show you is the initial treatment I did once the vet had done all the work that he needed to do. Here we have a beautiful male kestrel. Now look at the right wing, it is slightly dropped. That front part of the wing you can see near what you think is the shoulder is actually the wrist, so it says the wing is folded up, and where my finger and thumb are on the left and right wings is actually the equivalent of our wrist, and it's called the carpus. And here I am just testing for range of movement very gently, and then the soft tissue between that wrist and the body of the bird is called the propatagium, and I'm testing for the quality of that, and you can see it is tighter on the right, and I'm just gently teasing those soft tissues with my finger and thumb. And then once I've done that, I want to work in on the shoulder, so my fingers and the index finger of my left hand, apart from stopping the bird from turning round and getting me, is actually on the front part of the shoulder, and then I'm just using the rest of the wing to gently articulate the shoulder joint, and then I'm just gently going up underneath and including the elbow as well. And all these movements are slow, deliberate, and designed not to cause the bird any stress and not to stress the actual tissues themselves beyond what they are capable of doing. The bird is fully conscious. The vet is restraining the talons, and my other two fingers are restraining the neck so that the bird can't actually grab hold of me. And you can see it's quite calm. Apologies for the filming. We have to make do with what we can because this is a working hospital, so I do apologise. Sometimes the cameras want to focus on other bits in the room rather than the patient. Now you can see the range of movement with this bird, and the fact that its eyesight is brilliant. And yes, and then what I like to do often is just get them so that they focus on you, and that helps you assess the neck. Now this is the bird going into the aviary directly after this first treatment, and you can see it's able to fly up onto perches, but see the right wing is still dropping, and that's what I'm most concerned about. It can lift it up. The injury itself was a fracture very, very near the carpus, very near the wrist itself, and the goal is going to be to try and get this bird to be good enough to be able to hover and therefore survive in the wild. Right, now we did the first treatment, and then the kestrel was put out into an aviary to really monitor, and both monitor how it was doing, but also give it the freedom to actually start flying and fly from perch to perch. And staff would monitor this to see how the bird was coping. And in the next clip you'll see us in with the kestrel, looking really at not just whether it can fly, that's sort of stage one, but also that fine tuning and the balance and its ability to do the tasks it needs to do as a kestrel. On my next visit, I wanted to assess how it was doing in the aviary before we caught it, and you can see it's flying quite well. It's in a larger aviary now, and just looking at the way it's behaving, and then once we caught it, we brought it in to assess in the operating theatre. So we either use the operating theatre or the triage room, depending which is available. And what I'm happy with here is that the soft tissues at the front of the wing are doing much better, and I've got a better range of movement there. But it's all about sort of, with the injury, with so many of these wildlife casualties, we don't know how they came to be injured, and therefore we don't always know the extent of the injuries. X-rays and blood tests can tell us so much, but the problem is that we generally have gaps in the case history. You can see the bird is much more alert, and if it could, it would get me with its beak, and these small raptors can deliver quite a nasty nip. So I try and avoid that, and so my other two fingers are just gently around the neck, but making sure I'm not obstructing the windpipe or anything like that. And so yes, that it wasn't just the wrist, the shoulder as well. And you start to wonder, is the nerve supply to the shoulder being affected? So you can see if you offer these birds something, they will hang on to it. They are properly wild. And they've got, that's a leather glove. It's not that lightweight, and yet he's hanging on to it quite nicely. There he is trying to nip me. So you can see we have to be alert at all times. Because with these smaller raptors, they're a lot harder to sort of restrain and treat at the same time. Ironically, with the larger birds of prey, they're actually usually easier to handle because there's more of a distance between the wings and the neck, and the beak and the talons. So it does usually allow me more room to maneuver. But you can see how it's tracking me with its eye, so we know the eyesight's good, so that part of the nervous system's good and the neck muscles are good. But what I'm worried about is that the nerve supply to that right wing, and it's for the fine controlling. Now sometimes with some of the birds we'll use the center carbal roll from the tissue that we use, the paper towels we use in the hospital, and they just make for an impromptu hood, and they allow the birds to stay nice and calm. I'm just checking the other joints in the back. Now if you look at bird anatomy, they don't have vertebrae all the way down their back. They'll have fused sections of bone formed from other vertebrae. This is the bird back in the aviary. Apologies for the lighting, etc. But we just wanted to try and film it flying around back in the other aviary to get a better idea of how it's doing. And unfortunately that wing is still very much dropped, which is going to be a big problem. Because you have a small window in which to treat these birds in. They don't fare well in captivity, and this is always one of the fine lines I work with when working with wild creatures, is that the remit is to get them back out into the wild. And it can fly, it can land, it can attach itself to the wire at the top of the aviary. It's got the ability to do that, but has it got the ability to hover? And that's going to be the critical issue. And we just leave it there. They're incredibly strong for their size, these birds. As you can see from this second batch of treatment, we've got the bird able to fly. It can fly from perch to perch, but we couldn't, because of the nature of where the injury was, we gave it the best possible chance we could. We just could not get it to a point where it had full movement of the carpus, which, as I said earlier, are the wrists in us. And so sadly, this particular patient didn't make it. There is a policy of euthanasia in these situations because it is a wild bird. It is not fair to keep it in captivity. They do not make good pets when they come in as adults. And that's not a policy that any wildlife hospital has. It is to rescue, get these patients better and get them back out to the wild. And if you can't do that, there is only one kind option. And on a purely welfare issue, this case didn't make it. However, we're not going to end the video on a low. I wanted to show you a very short clip of another male kestrel that came in after I'd started treating this one, and this one just needed a little bit of work. It just had a soft tissue injury. There was no bony fractures or anything like that. And I just wanted to show you this one because this one did get released a couple of days later. So we'll end with just a nice closing piece with another kestrel that did make it, because a lot of our cases do actually get back out into the wild. So there you have it. The main case, although we improved massively, we learnt a lot from it. It didn't make it back out into the wild, but as you saw, another one that came in with purely soft tissue injuries to the wing, we were able to get it back out really quickly. And this is it. We give all these birds, all of these patients, the best chance we can, and some of them make it, some of them don't. The bottom line is, if they didn't come into the hospital, none of them would make it. So you know, we help where we can, but welfare is always absolutely 100% critical with these. We don't allow them to continue to suffer. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned. There will be more case studies coming up in the near future. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy.